Please welcome to the stage CEO and Executive Director of Hostelworld, Gary Morrison.
Thank you, everyone. These very nice people at Skift gave me exactly 17 minutes, which, as some of you will know, is 1 minute less than you get if you're doing a TED talk. So my job today is TED-level impact with a bit less time, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun. Now, it's interesting, if you think about a lot of the presentations that you would have heard today, they roughly split into two camps when you think about the brands and the businesses. There are those brands and businesses which help travelers research, select, book, find information. And of course, there are those other brands and businesses which are at the fulfillment end, whether you're a flight or an airline or indeed a hotel chain. And we've heard from both of those, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about something completely different, which is very close to my heart. And some of you will understand that actually people go traveling for many different reasons. And the one that I'm most excited about, and I'm going to share this story with you today, is traveling as a means to meet new people. And it's really, really interesting because I'm going to talk a little bit about hosteling. It's what I know a lot about. It's a very good petri dish for how people make choices if that's what their need is. But indeed, the need is much greater than that. I would argue it's probably 20 times the size, and the complexity is where AI comes in, because AI, I believe, is really going to supercharge how you can make this human-to-human connection if your need is to help me find people to hang out with. So how many in the room have been hosteling? Good number. I love that. And what's interesting, if you look around, is there's an awful lot of smiles. And I'd wager there's two reasons for that. The first is this was your first trip that you took without your parents. And you can draw your own conclusions. But the second thing, which is really interesting about it, is nobody really remembers the experience about, was the bed comfortable? What color were the sheets? What did the kitchen look like? What they remember are the people they met and the crazy experiences that they had. And I think for those of us who haven't been hosteling before, just to reset a little bit about what is this crazy category all about. So from a traveler perspective, 66% of travelers are solo travelers, 18 to 35. The other 34%, by the way, are groups of two. Very rare that we, at least in our business, that we have larger groups. So it's 2/3 one person, 1/3 two people. Lots of multi-destination trips with a really short booking window. And what that is actually about is people going from place to place, looking to see where the fun is. Where's the atmosphere? Where are the people that I'm going to hang out with and have fun with? Many of these people actually come back year after year. There's a thought that this is something you do just after university or just before university, but the reality is we have customers that are going all the way out for 10 years. Now, obviously, the central point is they use hosteling as a means to meet other people. There are bed and breakfasts out there, there are one-star hotels out there, there are other cheaper alternatives if you really want to look. But the reality is, they all know that if you go to a hostel, you go to the bar, and you have a pint and you talk to your neighbor, that's perfectly acceptable. What's also interesting is if you actually look at how does the supply side facilitate this? Most hostels are very small owner-operated businesses. The people who own those businesses are generally ex-hostelers themselves. It's almost a bit more like Airbnb. Their personality infuses the experience. They generally don't compete. They organize themselves into associations. Clearly, they offer dorm accommodation, communal. But the last point is actually really relevant, which is they themselves offer an awful lot of events to facilitate people meeting together. So as we went through COVID, and there's a reason why I'm telling you all of these things so we can build up to the larger story, we took the time to sort of think about, well, what business are we in? Now, who's read that famous 1960 Harvard Business School review article by Theodore Levitt called Marketing Myopia? Does that ring any bells? Well, essentially, what Theodore Levitt said is the rail companies thought they were in the railroad business. And they're not. They're in the transportation business. And had they acted like that, had their shareholders acted like that, they would have invested in other alternative ways for people to get from A to B. Now, by the same token, as we looked at our business, clearly we are in the business of helping people find the right place to stay, as a classic OTA would. But fundamentally, the real prevailing, prevalent need in this category is help me find people to hang out with. 66% of people are traveling solo, not because they're antisocial, it's because they expect to meet people on the go. So as a consequence, thinking about the business that we wanted to be in, we started building products that would do exactly that, help me find people to hang out with. And thereby having our brand associated with sort of a higher level emotive experience that, 5 minutes ago, when you put your hand up, you all remembered and you were all smiling. So that's where we wanted to be. So I'm going to show you a very short video. It's about 3 minutes long. And essentially, I want you to watch out for a few things. There's traveler profiles. There's the ability to see who's going at the hostel that you're booking while you're shopping on the shopping dates. There's chat rooms that are created by overlapping stay dates. So if you booked a hostel in Barcelona, you will be put into a room with everybody else who's at your hostel, but also in Barcelona, in drinks and dancing, so on and so forth, walking tours. Drinks and dancing is by far the way the most popular. And then giving tools to our hostel partners to be able to do those events. So I might pick out a few points in between, but hopefully this will give you a sense of what the product looks like, and then we can start to talk about how I believe AI is going to utterly transform this. So here we go. So this is the point that everybody gets terrified when they realize they have to go traveling on their own if they want to go traveling.
I absolutely love it.
And this is really what we're trying to solve for with the product. How can you provide that comfort level that you will meet people? So it starts off with a shopping experience. I'm looking for Barcelona, but now I want to be able to see who else is going at this hostel versus that hostel, because that's important to me. These are the things you can do in Barcelona. Now, hostels themselves put on all kinds of different events, really, really wide variety. So we wanted to be able to capture that in that platform and push them out to all the customers in the destination. For example, yoga sessions are very, very popular. But as you can see, you've got the place, whether it's paid for, crucially, who else is going. "14 days before your arrival date, you'll put into these chat rooms. Each of those has different themes. And these are all real conversations. And some of them are actually very funny. So as you check your content, you can merge that back in the link up, you can merge it back in the chat. then people can review it and so on and so forth. So every single day, in every single destination, we have tens of thousands of these Slack channels, if you will, at the hostel level, at the theme level, with all of these link-ups. But it's all in the greater purpose of helping people find others to hang out with. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I would just point out a couple of things that are pretty interesting. So, move on, here we go. So it's about 18 months since we launched these features. And what we realized as a consequence of being in a slightly different business that we're in is how you think about product fundamentally changes. Now, each of us who are looking at this, what do we see? Drinks at sunset. I like drinks at sunset. We're going to be doing drinks at sunset this evening, 6 o'clock. We see a band, so there's probably going to be live music. Yep, I love live music. It's at Park Güell. For those people who know Barcelona a little bit, it's a very famous park in the center of Barcelona. It's beautiful architecture by Gaudi. It's free. But this is not what people see if you're looking to find people to hang out with. We can take 3 examples of exactly the same product, and purely because the people who are going are different, for different people, that is going to appeal differently. Which sort of then poses the question, well, if that's true, how do you think about recommending what people to do? You can show them all the selection, but now you've got to figure out, for any particular traveler, which is the right one of these to show them. There's probably more than one drinks at sunset going on in Barcelona. So, you can ask people, version 1. And very simply, at the end of the booking path, we just said to people, very simple, are you planning on doing something when you get there? Now, remembering, about 2/3 of our travelers are solo travelers, 1/3 are groups of 2, so 2 guys, 2 girls, any other permutation. At about 65, 66, 2/3 of them said, yeah, we're going to do something. Which is actually, for some in the room, is a phenomenally high attach rate opportunity. But anyway, that's sort of the control question. And then we try asking a slightly different question just by putting a bit more information. If other people are the same age as you. And the solos are definitely like, yep, that makes a difference. For sure, I am much more likely to go to something if I know people are the same age. And then you try a slightly different one. You know, if the other travelers are the same nationality as you, and this time it's the groups of 2 who say, well, actually, that's important. And then if you add the 2 things together, other travelers of the same age, same nationality, you know, it starts to inch even higher if you're a group of 2, which kind of explains our own sort of understanding and perceptions when we go traveling, and you see like the big group of Spaniards or the big group of Italians, and like now you know why. But what it also means is this is really complicated. How many different variations, even within solos, you've got male, female, nationality, people who have a preference for smaller groups, people who have a preference for bigger groups. You cannot get there by asking people what they want. And I think this is where the story of AI really comes to the fore. So the way that we think about it is, well, we have a platform that's creating and where we have all of these connections for different kinds of people who are connecting in chat rooms, forming their own groups in chat rooms, and indeed going to these link-ups that I mentioned earlier. So we're churning out these, you know, amazingly large amounts of data. And this kind of gives us a thought, and I must preface this is an artist's impression. This is not real. This is our vision. This is what we aspire to create in terms of the future when we think about an AI-powered product portfolio for people who are looking to meet other people while traveling. So I'm doing my search, Barcelona, Spain. Maybe this is the first thing we'll say. Here are other people who are going to be in Barcelona when you're there on the dates, and based on what we understand of how people are connecting together with some sort of simple review system, these might be the people that we think that you would conceivably like to hang out with, or even groups of people. And then the next thing we might do is, based on the recent walking tour that you did in the last city, here's some examples of things that you might like to do in Barcelona. And you'll note, sure, there's a couple of walking tours there. There's Explore Downtown and City Tour, but there's also other things. So those other things are there because of the people who are going. So they may not have been your first thought of something that you want to do, but they could be very attractive because there are going to be lots of people there that you're going to really love to hang out with. And then maybe you just want to see what's trending in Barcelona. Based on who else is going, what would I like to do? And you'll see that this is somewhat modeled on a kind of Netflix way of thinking about what a travel interface could look like if you were in the business of helping travelers find people to hang out with. And indeed, it goes one place further. Most of our travelers are going from place to place. Where are the people going next who I might like to hang out with? And this is where you get to. Now, we have spoken a lot about hosteling, but as I said, I wanted to use that as a bit of a petri dish to explain some of the concepts, but why do I think it's bigger? Well, if you, like a lot of people in our business do, go trawling around social networks, you will see that there's a lot of people who are older, who are looking for people to hang out with. Clearly, they are beyond the hosteling experience. They would like a different accommodation type, they have more disposable income. It's just a bit different. So here you have a gentleman who's going to be traveling to South Korea, or indeed, you might have a group of two who happen to be traveling around Andalusia. They're looking for people to hang out with, sociable thing to do. And then there's this last category. And this is the one that I am really, really interested in. And when you read it, it's a category which I'd love to claim that I invented the category. I didn't. I read it a long time ago, but it certainly resonated with me, which was solo by circumstance, not by design. And I would wager that most people in this room have a friend, a colleague, whatever it happens to be, who find themselves solo by circumstance, not by design. Maybe they didn't get married, maybe they did, maybe they got divorced, maybe they've moved to a new city, whatever it happens to be, they want to use travel as a means of expanding their social circle. And this, I would argue, is probably the biggest category, and of course it's all connected with adult loneliness. It's probably even greater now, post-pandemic, than it was pre-pandemic. Now, it's super hard to get an idea about how big this category could be. But what's interesting, a couple of data points for you. If you look at the rise of one-person households, so this is census data that has been compiled, basically looking at city level and saying, what is the proportion of households in a city that only have one resident? Now, for the last 200-300 years, it's been pretty flat, until you get to around 1980s, 1990s, and then it shoots up. And it's curious, if you look at Stockholm, a city I know quite well, 60% of all households only have one person living in them, closely followed by London at 57%. Now, we don't have any more recent data, but I would wager that there is a lot more other capital cities which are looking surprisingly similar. Another data point, not a particularly good one, but I'll throw it out there. If you look at the online dating industry, there's about 350 million online dating users this year. It's expected to rise to about 430 million. So it's a big category, and I would argue, there's a real societal good that the industry can formulate around, which is, think about adult loneliness. What a wonderful way to expand your circle. Help people find others to hang out with while they're traveling. So there's 3 takeaways. Actually, I'm going to say 4. Takeaway number 1. Travelers often use vacations for other things that we don't think about. For example, to meet new people. Find me people to hang out with. Very prevalent in hosteling, And I hope you would agree there's a huge amount of people outside hosteling who aspire to other things, but they want to use the magic of travel as a means of expanding their social circle. Second thing, these decisions are complex, right? It is a function of who else is going, as well as what the thing is. And as a consequence of that, our belief, and certainly the way that we're thinking about how we want to develop the company and where we want to go, is AI is probably the only technology, and think more about deep learning rather than generative AI, that's going to be powerful enough to disentangle and decode all of those patterns as to how people make decisions. And the fourth one I was going to say is big thanks to the Skift team for giving us an unbelievably amazing venue. It's been a real pleasure to present it to you today. Thank you.